Hey, where do you think you're going?
I need my fluids, Dad.
You have money?
Yeah.
Okay, well, quick in and out, because we gotta get home. Hey, honey, it's me. I just wanted to let you know that our son is going to Canada to play hockey, and we didn't want any kind of long, drawn-out goodbye, so I dropped him off at the airport. He says he'll call, but of course, we may never see our son again. But as long as he's happy, right?
Get the fuck down, or I'll blow your fucking head off! Get the fuck down! No! This is your man! This is your man!
You can do this.
That's your guy! Do this, or you're not one of us! Do it! What am I doing? What?
Brendan!
Help me! Somebody help me! Help!
Your Honor, I'd like to enter the statement of a witness present at the time of the attack, father of the victim.
We can enter that at trial, can we not, Mr. Baring?
I believe, Your Honor, if we enter it today, defense will change their plea to guilty, save the people the time and expense of a trial.
That's the statement. Mr. Hume, you're giving evidence that Mr. Darley here, before your eyes, attacked your son and caused his death. You're saying you'll testify to that in a trial?
No, Your Honor, I am not.
What?
There were a lot of them. It was dark. I can't be sure anymore.
I'm dismissing this case. Mr. Darley, you are released from custody. You may return with a bailiff to the holding cells to retrieve your personal effects.
I'm proud of you. Who's your man now?
In the opening scene, we are introduced to Nick and Helen, who lead a fulfilling life with their two sons. Brendan, the elder sibling, has a passion for hockey, while Lucas is more sensitive and enjoys artistic pursuits. Over time, Brendan hones his hockey skills, earning his family's pride when he is recognized as the best player on his high school team. Nick Hume, a businessman based in North Carolina, enjoys a happy family life. However, Brendan and Lucas occasionally engage in playful banter, with their disagreements primarily stemming from their age difference and individual personalities. Despite this, they share a close bond and deep affection for one another. Brendan has now advanced to a professional career as an NHL ice hockey player and has a game scheduled for later that evening. Nick drives him to the game, where Brendan delivers an outstanding performance that excites Nick. On their way home, Brendan reveals his intention to move to Canada to further his hockey career, a plan that Nick wholeheartedly supports, trusting in his son's talent and determination. As they pass through a high-crime neighborhood, they become alarmed when two cars begin swerving dangerously nearby. Eventually, their vehicle runs out of gas, prompting them to stop at a gas station. While Brendan goes inside to purchase drinks, Nick seizes the moment to inform his wife about Brendan's future aspirations. Unfortunately, thugs arrive at the store with the intent to rob it, and they fatally shoot the owner. The gang operates under a chilling rule: every new member must kill someone before being accepted. Tragically, Brendan becomes the target. The new gang member hesitates and is clearly frightened but ultimately follows through with the commander's orders, resulting in Brendan's death. This traumatic event leaves Nick reeling. As the gang escapes, he manages to ambush Brendan's attacker, knocking him down and removing his mask. However, the assailant retaliates with a punch before fleeing but is subsequently struck by a car. Nick rushes to his son and takes him to the hospital. Helen and Lucas arrive shortly thereafter, only to face the devastating news of Brendan's passing. Words fail to capture their anguish. The following day, during a police lineup, Nick identifies the assailant, a 23-year-old named Joe. They hold Brendan's funeral on a rainy and somber day, with their grief lingering heavily. The parents struggle to find rest as memories of Brendan play continuously on repeat, leaving Lucas in tears whenever he reflects on his brother's vibrant life. Helen strongly encourages Nick to take all necessary steps to ensure that the perpetrator receives a life sentence before he has the opportunity to approach law enforcement. The following day, Nick meets with Detective Wallace and the district attorney, where he becomes infuriated upon learning that the district attorney plans to accept a plea deal for a reduced sentence due to insufficient evidence for a trial. Compounding his frustration is the revelation that the gas station lacks surveillance cameras, leaving no documentation of the incident. Nick's anger intensifies when he discovers that Brendan's murder was part of a rite of passage for Joe to join the gang. The judge subsequently calls him to testify at the pre-trial hearing regarding Joe's involvement in Brendan's murder. However, he declines, stating that he could not see the assailant's face due to the darkness. This refusal astonishes everyone present, leading to the court's dismissal of the case and Joe's release from custody. As Joe exits, he reluctantly extinguishes his cigarette, only to be greeted by the gang, who applaud him and invite him to join their ranks. Unbeknownst to them, Nick is closely monitoring their movements. Joe is rewarded with cash and a prostitute for his initiation into the gang. Disillusioned by the legal system, Nick is later seen searching for a weapon that night. He informs his family that the lack of evidence resulted in Joe's release. Claiming he left something at work, he approaches Joe. When Joe emerges from the building, he is taken aback to find Nick waiting for him. In a moment of rage, Nick confronts him. As Joe fights for his life, Nick drives away and discards the bloody weapon. Upon returning home, Helen becomes distressed upon seeing his injured hand and rushes to fetch a bandage. While Nick showers, they both succumb to tears, grappling with the reality that he has become both a killer and a victim. Meanwhile, Billy visits his superior, Bones, who oversees the entire gang. Billy hands over the money from the gas station robbery, but Bones chastises him for the shortfall and dismisses him. At the gang's hideout, where they manufacture methamphetamine, one of Billy's associates, Bodie, informs him of Joe's death, leaving Billy shocked and enraged. Later, Detective Wallace arrives at Nick's office to inform him about Joe's demise. Nick feigns ignorance about the situation and inquires about the cause of death. Wallace notices the bandage on Nick's hand and becomes suspicious, suspecting that Nick may be involved in an act of retribution. In a separate location at their usual pub, the gang raises their drinks in honor of Joe, whom they regard as a loyal soldier. At that moment, Billy enters and reprimands them for showing disrespect towards Joe. Shifting the focus back to business, they begin discussing rival gangs that could potentially target Joe for assassination. The conversation takes a turn when one of the gang members reveals that his sister witnessed a man in a suit on the night of Joe's murder. She later confirms her sighting after recognizing Nick's photograph in the newspaper. Meanwhile, Nick is seen on the street re-bandaging his hand, completely unaware that Bodie, a gang member, is tracking him while Billy observes from a distance. Just as Bodie prepares to shoot Nick, he manages to disarm him using his suitcase. This prompts Billy and his gang to open fire in the middle of the street, causing panic among bystanders. In an attempt to escape, Nick flees into a narrow alley as the gangsters close in from all directions. Billy seizes every opportunity to shoot at Nick, forcing him to abandon his bag in order to evade capture. Nick seeks refuge in a building while being relentlessly pursued by the gang. He eventually finds himself in a parking garage, where he activates several car alarms in an effort to create confusion. Despite their continued pursuit, Nick reaches the top floor of the structure. And a fight ensues with one of the gang members. As the car is reversed, it careens through the multi-story parking facility. Nick narrowly escapes just in time, but the gangster falls to his death in the process. Following this incident, Nick receives a call from his wife and learns that Lucas has gone missing. Meanwhile, Detective Wallace arrives at the crime scene and discovers that the victim is affiliated with the same group as Joe, leading her to suspect Nick's involvement. Nick eventually finds Lucas at the site of Brendan's death. Lucas, visibly upset, confronts his father, who remains preoccupied with Brendan's situation and neglects Lucas's concerns. After a heated exchange about returning home due to safety concerns, Lucas ultimately makes it home safely. Helen embraces Lucas and implores him not to leave home in such a manner again. The next day, Bodhi visits Nick's office to return the suitcase he dropped during their earlier confrontation. As security personnel escort him away, Bodhi ominously states that Nick has the right to know how he will die. Upon opening the suitcase, Nick discovers that a family photo has been crossed out, indicating that the mobster intends to eliminate his entire family. Enraged by this revelation, Nick decides to call Billy's number found within the suitcase. Billy informs Nick that he has effectively placed a death sentence on his family. In response, Nick immediately contacts his home to advise his wife and Lucas to remain indoors. He then reaches out to the detective, expressing his concerns and requesting additional support. Upon returning home, Nick secures all the windows, leaving his family confused and anxious. Shortly thereafter, Detective Wallace arrives and confronts Nick about the chaos he has instigated, which has jeopardized his family's safety. The detective urges him to confess to the murder, assuring him that law enforcement will continue to protect his family, but he declines. Later that night, while the rest of his family sleeps, Nick is awakened by a car alarm outside. He discovers the brutal murder of 2 officers and, in a swift turn of events, encounters intruders inside his home, and the fight ensues. In a ruthless act, Billy quickly shoots Helen, Lucas, and Nick. Miraculously, Nick survives and is hospitalized for several days, filled with remorse over the deaths of Lucas and Helen. While Helen has succumbed to her injuries, Lucas remains in critical condition. Upon learning this, Nick visits Lucas and finds his son in a coma, expressing his regret for not being a better father. Shortly after, Detective Wallace is astonished to discover that Nick has escaped through a window. He returns home to find it has become a crime scene. The following day, he visits the bank to withdraw all his funds. With assistance from his colleagues, Nick locates the gang's hideout. At a cafe, he inquires about the gang while placing cash on the bar, but the bartender dismisses him and mocks him. In a fit of rage, Nick assaults the bartender and another patron who attempts to intervene. Through this confrontation, he learns Billy's location as well as Bone's address for acquiring weapons. At Bone's residence, Bone initially shows disinterest but quickly changes his mind upon seeing Nick's bag of cash. Nick selects several weapons, including a shotgun and a revolver loaded with ammunition. Before he departs, Bone reveals that Billy and Joe are his sons and acknowledges Nick's intention to kill Billy. Bone assures him that he will not pose any threat, allowing Nick to leave without conflict. Back home, Nick inspects and prepares the firearms. He shaves his injured head and goes through Brendan's belongings, finding the jacket Brendan wore on the day of his death, which he puts on before heading to the gang's headquarters. He locates their hideout down the hall and bursts through the door with his shotgun, catching the mobster inside off guard. The thug is stunned, believing Nick to be dead. Nick places a gun at the man's throat and instructs him to call Billy. Realizing Nick is still alive, Billy hears the gunshot as Nick eliminates the gangster. Bone meets with his elder son Billy and warns him that the situation is spiraling out of control, advising him to cease hostilities against Nick. Instead, Billy brutally murders his father. Meanwhile, Nick arrives at the gang's base, leading to a violent confrontation. After dispatching most of the gangsters, he faces off against Billy. In a tense shootout that leaves both men injured, Billy taunts Nick about becoming like them. With tears in his eyes, Billy watches as Nick retrieves another weapon from his pocket and ultimately kills him before returning home. While awaiting his own demise, Nick watches an old family video. Detective Wallace arrives to inform him that Lucas has emerged from his coma but expresses concern for Lucas's future without parental support. Overwhelmed by the trauma they have endured, Nick feels an even deeper sorrow for what lies ahead for Lucas. Thanks for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more of these recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.